How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Spooky Japan Podcast. Hoping everyone is doing well. Today, I have Larry with me. How you doing, Larry?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. It's a little bit chilly here in Japan, but it's getting that year. We have
Yeah,
not, we did not get that point where we had the nice fall or just hoodie weather. It's straight, with the straight hot to straight cold.
hot to cold. Yeah, that's how it is here too in the Midwest. We went from 70s and 80s all of a sudden down to 50, 32 at night, and all of a sudden you're just like, wait, where did fall go? We went straight to almost winter, and now we're expected to get snow on Thursday. So yay!
Isn't there places there that already have snow?
Some, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
the more northern states.
I've seen pictures of people with them out in the snow, and I'm like, man, I knew it was coming. I don't know. I'm so used to
I'm
it a little bit later.
I'm ready for it. It's just the further away I can get from summer without snow, the better I am. Because it's like I
That's how
know
I was. Yeah, I
January and
live.
February are going to be bad, but usually December is not too bad.
I actually grew up not too far away from Chicago in Michigan. So I know how that is. I went from Michigan to Montana.
Okay.
Montana winters are even worse,
Oh,
it
sure.
being
Yeah.
up in the mountains.
Right.
And then I went from there to Arizona for a couple of years to
Where there is no winter.
North Carolina, yeah, but the summers were extreme though.
Sure. Oh, I think Amanda froze. Did I freeze? I think she froze. Well, one of us froze. I should check on my Facebook to see if I'm moving, and maybe it's her that froze. Maybe I froze. Nope, she froze. Okay. Well, we're gonna wait for Amanda to come back. um, I guess. I guess while we wait for Amanda to come back. Oh,
Okay,
there
there
she
we
is.
are. I'm like, I don't know what happened. It's just everything went blank, and I'm like, wait,
Yeah, you froze up there.
yeah. Luckily, everything looks back to normal. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, I'm like, did I freeze? No, she froze. Okay,
Snow, and
checking
I'm
it
like,
out.
no, you love playing in snow, but if you actually lived in snow, you'd hate it. Like driving
Oh
in
yeah,
it every day, getting stuck.
it's not the end of the world, but it gets old very fast.
It does, yes.
Very very fast.
I want to ask you if you have any good ghost stories. However, if you don't mind,
Hmm.
I'd like to play one of ours here for you.
Sure.
So you can see what the kind of stories I'm used to hearing over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let me.
Story of Oiwa. The tale of Oiwa is one of Japan's most famous ghost stories and is based on true events. Oiwa was a beautiful woman who lived in the Edo period. She was married to a man named Iman, who was cruel and unfaithful. Iman wanted to marry another woman, so he plotted to get rid of Oiwa. Iman poisoned Oiwa, causing her to become disfigured and suffer greatly before she died. Her hair fell out, her face became swollen, and one of her eyes drooped horribly. Oiwa died in agony, but her spirit did not rest. Soon after her death, Oiwa's ghost began to haunt Iman. Wherever he went, he would see her twisted face, hear her mournful cries, and feel her presence close by. Her ghostly figure would appear in his home, floating in front of mirrors, and sometimes emerging from lanterns, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Oiwa's spirit was relentless, driving Iman to madness. He saw her face in every woman he tried to be with, and her whispers tormented him day and night. No matter how far he ran, he could not escape her vengeance. Eventually, Oiwa's ghost led Iman to his doom.
Wow, that's quite
Yeah.
a story.
So eventually, got him, and I guess his face turns ghostly like hers,
Yeah.
and they say that her spirit still wanders around Japan.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, is there any records of people encountering her?
I don't know if there is, it's just one of those urban legends of Japan, but those are the kind of ghost stories over here that we're used to kind of hearing.
Sure. Sure, sure. They're not all that different from our ghost stories.
That's true,
Um,
yeah.
Although a lot of ours don't really talk about disfiguration, I feel like. Um, Sometimes the spirit will be disfigured, but a lot of times, they're kind of reminiscent of how they were in life. One of the
Yeah.
more common ones, especially in my area, but I know that they're common everywhere. It's like the phantom hitchhiker.
Hmm.
There's a road about maybe an hour from me. Actually, there's a couple roads, but um, the one is it's called Kennedy Hill Road. It's just a road that ends on a hill, and it's called Kennedy Hill Road. But for decades, people would see this woman in a white slip or a nightgown just walking the road. But she looked just as lively as we did. You'd drive past her, like, do a double take and look back, or turn around to go and pick her up, and she'd be gone. But she would only ever appear in the wintertime, especially when it was cold and snowy. And, there was no like obvious thing that was wrong with her. Like she didn't have blood stains or disfigurement. She was just a teenage girl walking the road. Cuba Road has a similar story. There's all sorts of stories like that. But, they're never super disfigured, kind of like the spirit in that story was. So I think it's interesting. And I know you've told me other things that kind of differ for spirits in Japan.
Hmm.
The last time I was on the show, we talked about it a little bit. How in Japan, like if you encounter a spirit in your home, they don't care. They'll stare you down until you go away.
And I think it's more of a warning when they do that of a I can enter your home at any moment, so don't cross my boundaries. And I'm like, I wasn't going to begin with. I know
Yeah,
better than yourself paranormal.
yeah. Whereas here, spirits tend to hide more. Like they're not quite as confrontational. And really, the intention and power of the living have a lot more power over the dead. So, with a little bit of oomph in your voice, you could tell something to leave, and a lot of times it will. Whereas in Japan, they're just like, no, and then they'll turn back and watch TV again.
Yeah, they're just like, no, that's
No, I
that's.
stay here now.
I don't even want to talk to you. They're like, no, I just want to be in this area, but I don't want to talk to you because
Yeah,
they're like I guess a lot of us are just like, I don't want to talk to people, and you're people.
yeah. Well, that's kind of disappointing because all the animes that I've seen with ghosts and them getting stuck in walls and stuff, I was hoping to be something like that. Just to see just a ghost girl just sitting there like, I'm stuck, help. Apparently not.
I don't know why I would do that. Like, I don't know how to help you.
Just back up. Go forward. You're a ghost. You can go through the wall. It's okay. But
What has been your scariest encounter that you've ever?
hmm, I would have to say this was many, many, many years ago. My paranormal partner Dan and I were at a cemetery with another investigator, and we didn't have permission to be in the cemetery, so we just kind of hung around the fence. And he put his arms over the chain link, kind of like this. He's kind of leaning on the fence. And we're talking, and I'm looking at the other investigator because I had the camera going. And all of a sudden, you hear Dan make a whole bunch of noise. Like the chain link's going, he's going, ah, ah, ah. And I turn around, and Dan is halfway over the fence. And the only reason he got stuck on the fence was because the way that the chain link is kind of like twisted at the top. It got stuck on his jeans. So he kind of just got stuck there hanging halfway over the fence. And my first thought is, what the hell are you doing? Get down. Like, did you drop something inside? You're trying to reach something? And lo and behold, he got pulled into the cemetery.
Oh
So,
no.
we're both tall guys. I'm about 6'2". He's about the same. And a fence about this high that you could comfortably put your arms on, that would be quite the task to get up and over. And he did it just like whoop, and he got stuck. So we get him down, we're talking to him, and he holds his arms out, and on his forearms, right here and right here, there's handprints of something grabbing his arm and pulling him over. And then, 3 to 4-ish hours later, when I was getting ready to go home, I'm like, hey, let me see your arms because, you should probably put some ice on them or something. And he pulls his sleeve up and puts his arm out, and the bruises are gone. So that was a little scary to see, a big guy getting pulled over a fence. That's a lot of energy for a spirit. What's going on, Bill? Um, Otherwise, I wouldn't say anything super scary. I've been grabbed more times than I want. That's for sure. Grabbed forcefully. There was one time, and I'm working on the video right now. I went to a Prohibition era brothel where the ladies are still working, and that's a different kind of grabbed. But yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah,
There's
I've
a
heard that
a bunch of
happening.
video, so that's gonna be a fun one to put out. But yeah, really, that's the only I would say scary one is because it's like, holy crap, like you got picked up, and he's a 300-pound guy, like dude's stacked, and he got picked up. So like that was kind of intense. So um,
Irene is out and about today. That's why she's not here. But
hey
she's
Stacy,
doing okay. I just recently talked to her.
yeah, she's doing the nomad thing, doing her stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but the the one time that I was unsettled, I wouldn't say scared, but I didn't like it. We were at a location in Wisconsin called Broadhead Manor, which is where I do most of my stuff out of. Um, it's like my favorite building because it's 60,000 square feet of ghosts. Like you can do so much in there. And the janitor is he has an intense personality. We'll say that. He's not evil. He's
Yeah.
not anything like that. He's just kind of a jerk. And when he's done with you, he'll let you know. So it's me, Dan, and Jen from our show Expedition Andy. We're investigating what's going on, Neil. Santa Neil. We're investigating the boiler room, which is where his space is. There's a janitor's maintenance room behind it. And we're asking questions, and we're kind of run out of questions. And Dan goes, Jen, do you want to ask some questions? And Jen gets about 3 questions in before the janitor grabs me by the shoulders, locks up all the muscles of my back, my shoulders, my arms, all the hair, my body standing up. And then at the same time, the SB7 goes, fucking leave. And we're just like, uh, I'm sitting there frozen. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. That's all I could say. Like I was such in shock. It didn't hurt, um, but like it was strong enough to lock everything up and then make everything, all tingly and stuff. So, after a minute of me repeating, I don't like this repeatedly, um, we end up walking out, and then we continue the investigation in another part of the building. But since I've been back in the boiler room, you know, a dozen times, either leading groups for investigations or, doing my own thing, solo sessions and whatnot. So, it wasn't that I was scared, but I didn't like getting touched. that was a little intense.
I had one spirit in my office. I had one spirit in my office, and it's just wanted to hang out here.
Yeah,
And it wouldn't even say who he was. We'd ask him, "Who are you?" Just say me. Like,
sure.
well, who's me?
Yeah,
Nothing. I'm like, all right, chill. Watch
yeah.
me talk about ghosts. That's fine. Because even Irene was asking who it was, and I was like, yeah, he doesn't say more than me.
I have a
I
ghost
don't.
in my house that won't talk at all. he doesn't want to talk. He's there. He's intelligent because if you tell him to leave, he'll turn around and walk out. He's just a shadow on my stairs. That's it. I call him Stairman. He's just a dude, and if you're not paying attention and you walk through him, you'll black out for a second. If you stand inside of him, it's just pitch black. Like there's nothing, there's no light, and it feels weird. But otherwise, like he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't want to interact. He'll just stand. Like, that's his spot. But yeah, won't say anything.
Back in my
So
house in back in my house in North Carolina,
yeah,
I had this elderly woman. She was the previous resident there. It was one of those, she was kind of content there. That was her house. I think she built that house with her family.
yeah,
It was the first house on that street.
yeah.
Her and her family built it. She raised her kids there. She was just kind of content being there.
Okay,
So she stayed there, but she was one of those ghosts that realized that in the spiritual world, that house is her house, but in the physical, it's my house. So we kind of had that mutual understanding of, we know in a different way it's our house. We know we exist, but we're just not gonna bother each other. And she mostly stayed different place than I was in from the house.
hmm
In the house. But I loved her because she was that Southern grandma. I mean, the tough Southern grandmas. Like, think of, I don't even know her name. The grandma from Beverly Hillbillies. You
oh,
don't want to
okay.
mess with her. She'll
Like
come
a
after
Mima
you.
type.
Yes, that was
Yeah,
her. And I loved her because I could go out investigating and come back. And I knew as soon as I entered those doors, nothing followed me because they couldn't get in. That was her house.
yeah.
Her world,
No
that's
one
her
messes with
house.
Mima, living or not.
Yes. And she did a good job at making sure nothing got into that house.
Yeah.
And every time I tell people about that, especially when I live there, psychics would be like, "Yeah, I put my energy in there to see who you're talking about." She looked at me and she said, "What are you doing here?" They're like, "Are you sure she's friendly?" I'm like, "Yeah, to me, because she gave me permission to live there. You just put your energy in there without asking her first." And she's like, no, my house.
Yeah.
You just barged in.
Right.
Leave." It's like,
Right.
"Yeah, if I go in there, she's friendly. She'll like, you leave me alone.
Sure.
You put your
Sure.
energy in there without asking to come to that house first." Yeah, no.
There's a
She
there's a
told you to.
location not too far from me, about an hour or so. It's called the Tinker Swiss Cottage, and it's a Swiss chalet style mansion in Rockford, Illinois. And it is, I believe, the United States largest single family owned museum, where like every artifact in the museum is like their hairbrushes, their bed sheets, like all their personal artifacts. But it's all contained within their house. So the entire family of like seven-ish spirits have crossed over and come back and now live in their house as spirits. And there's been a few times where I've heard stories of other spirits like attaching along for like a tour,
Yeah.
and they'll cordon that spirit off in the attic until one of their favorite psychics can come and get rid of the spirit for them. So like they'll defend their territory if they
Yeah.
really have to. With your situation, it's easy to keep them out, but with this situation, it's a tour. They get brought in because they're welcomed, and then at that point, you're kind of stuck with them for a little bit. But yeah, if they don't like the vibe, nope, get out. You got to go.
Hey.
There you are,
She's in the car. I was telling people you're out and about today. I'm like, see? Proof. She's out and about.
out
I'm
and
good. I'm
about.
good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Ah, shush.
Not able to do anything but desires to stay among human for spiritual guidance. I can see that. I can see that.
Some people
Just
that
live
just,
vicariously through other people.
especially that old lady, she just want to live her life. The reason I didn't pick the house I lived in. She picked it for me, and it's because she had all sons. So me
Mm,
coming with this daughter, she was excited.
Sure.
She's like, "Now you're gonna live here.
This is our house.
Yeah, this is our house."
Yeah, we live
And
here
then
now.
she's also like, "Yeah, you go and investigate. You give me something to do. You give me something to
Right.
fight when you come back."
Right. Make me feel alive again.
Mm.
But out in the garage, it had a detached garage, and I found out it was, and you could tell the way it was set up. It was used as her husband and I think some of her son's mechanic shop. So they had a little mechanic shop in the back there,
Okay.
and his spirit was still in that garage for I don't probably the same reason he stays out in the garage, but he had a different kind of energy because when I
Yeah.
first encountered him, I just remember getting upset and wanting to buy, eventually one day trying to figure out how to buy all the
Mm.
land around me if it ever became, up for sale. And I
Okay.
found out later it was because they owned like the family owned, even though it was a smaller house, the family themselves were one of those country people where they owned like 40 acres of land that
Yeah.
when they both passed, it went to the children, and the children divided up among the people, the children sold it.
Yeah.
So
And they didn't like that.
he's not happy about that. To him, that
Sure.
was his land, and he's upset. So he's a different. I stayed away from the garage because he was so different in that aspect.
Well, sure. I'm sure there's some kind of ancestral thought process, and now you're bringing in new people because they own that part of the property, and
Yeah, he
wild.
was not happy about it.
Yeah. I mean, you see similar things here where larger properties get split up, and all of a sudden, the spirits are upset because what used to be all one property is now three. So,
Oh, it became a bunch of different properties, definitely, because
yeah.
there's a lot of houses went on sale for that. So the
Okay.
children definitely made a lot. I mean, 40 acres down to it was 3/4 of an acre. So he went
Oh
from
wow.
40 acres to 3/4 of an acre,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically. Yeah, he was not happy about that.
Wow.
But I get that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from you.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, there are also spirits that I've encountered where there are men's spaces, and they don't want women in their spaces.
That's like that
So
here, brother
yeah,
Rain.
that could be a thing too.
That is definitely the same thing here. Irene can tell you there's places where men and women cannot walk together because out of
Yeah.
jealousy,
Yeah.
they
Okay.
Yeah.
will attack.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a museum here that I go to. It's at the Veterans Memorial Hall. And when it was erected in the early 1900s, it was a men's space for men to come together, and talk about their time in war and stuff like that. The women, weren't really a part of that. So now when you go to the areas that the men frequented the most with a female investigator, the spirits will either ignore you or they'll be kind of mean to her
Mm-hmm.
and make her want to leave. And then if it's all guys, they'll have no problem. They'll be the most communicative. They'll light all the things up, but it's just they like the men only in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe your garage is a men only space too.
Mm-hmm. Certain jails are like that too.
Sure.
Not just
Yeah.
jails, but it's not just jails, but it's also Masonic lodges are
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
more famous for that because it's
Yes.
usually, especially if the whoever's haunting it was a member to them when they were alive, that was a men only club. And all of a
Right.
sudden you have a woman coming in, and there's been teams where I've known they went to Masonic lodges. They were warned that, but they didn't care.
Right.
And the female was getting agitated because nothing was happening, and she understood, and she was like, "Nope, it's me." And she left the room, and they were like, "No, no, you don't have to leave." She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Nope, I'm gonna leave." And as soon as she left, that they said that's when the activity all of a sudden started picking up. I'm like,
Yep.
"Yeah, it's because
Yep.
it's a
You're
one
not you're not
Masonic
supposed to
lodge,
be
and
there.
unfortunately, we're gonna have worse luck than you meant."
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause they're
yeah.
gonna be like, "Why is there a woman in our space compared to?"
We did a Masonic temple about an hour and a half, hour 45 from me. The building is the size of like a city block, so it's a huge building. And it's kind of the same thing. They had a men's ritual room where all the men met, but they
Uh-huh.
had a smaller room where the women did their thing in that
Uh-huh.
room.
Uh-huh.
So, when we were investigating, it was three guys and then one female investigator. And,
Uh-huh.
we really didn't get much luck in either one because we
Uh-huh.
had what the other didn't want. So
Uh-huh.
when we went to the female large room, it's like nothing really happened for us at all. When we went to the male room, we had better results because the female investigator was a tour guide for the building. So they'd kind of gotten used to her.
Uh-huh.
But it makes me wonder, if we would have just kind of reduced it down to only guys, if we would have had better results.
Yeah. Sometimes
Definitely
you
a place like
cancel
that, I
yourself
would do
out.
men only.
What's that?
I would definitely in that place recommend men only for that reason is
Yeah. The rest of the building, though, perfectly fine. You can mix it up however you want. Ages, doesn't matter. But for those two spaces, it just like, even in the women's room, I'm like, I don't feel like I belong here. I feel like I
Uh-huh.
need to go.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't anything like malicious, but it's just like you don't belong. You need to go back into
Uh-huh.
the hallway.
Uh-huh.
they'll
It's
send
like,
that energy
okay,
out. You know, like this is our women only. Why are
Uh-huh.
you in here?
right. It's like if the women were all alive, I imagine them just sitting there staring at me like, "What are you doing here?
Yeah. As
They
if you
probably
don't
were
Why
with
is he
belong,
that
here?"
energy afterwards.
or even something bad could happen to you if you're in that room too long, because they
Potentially.
give you warning. This is our warning, and the second part is that, well, I don't like you. There you go. Boom.
Right. Right. And I've been pretty fortunate. I haven't had anything serious like that happen to me, other than that one time at Broadhead. But it wasn't like I was asking the questions. It was Jen. Why did he
Yeah.
grab me? I don't know, but he
Yeah.
did. But I've been in there a dozen times since and have no problems. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like, hey, we knew she's not supposed to ask questions. We knew that she could be in there. Just watch and let
Uh-huh.
let the two guys do it. And then Dan goes, "Would you like to ask questions, Jen?" And then he's like, "Nope, that was your warning. Get out now."
Yeah.
So, but he's an older, early 1900s spirit. So he's, very much stuck in his ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Yeah.
know, he's just kind of a jerk now. But as long as you leave him alone and you're respectful, like you'll have a good time. But oh boy, pay attention to his rules.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was. I investigated in South Carolina an old jail, and I wish I would have brought a male with me because only me and another female.
Yeah.
And it was a men's only prison, and it had a
Okay.
very violent past. But it was one of those prisons where they kind of had honor, where they wouldn't, no matter what, they wouldn't touch the women. But if a man went in there, it was going to be completely different, where they may go after you. And there
Yeah.
was actually, because it was a woman who runs it, who runs the paranormal part, because she got them to open it up to investigations at night. So she ran that part,
Hmm.
and there was a room in the basement. We went in there. We didn't. Nothing really happened to us, but she said there is a male spirit in there that you need that if you had a male with you would have to be careful of because he has no problem going after that male.
Oh.
The best story she could think of was there was a guy who was doing his demonology tour. That was one of the places he went to. He
Okay.
went into that room. I guess he was taunting that spirit for I don't know why. Don't ask me why, I don't know. That was his whole thing. And she up on the next floor, he was screaming so loudly she could hear it all the way in another floor. It's a jail, so it's concrete. So she heard it all the way down the next floor, down the hall.
Oh.
She went down there running and he was he was up in the air being choked,
Oh.
Wow.
and it was a big guy like you too.
Yeah.
So they're just like, yeah, that spirit, he won't touch females like the other spirits here, but a male, you need to be very careful around him going in there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that could I could see that being very intense.
Yeah,
Very,
we
very, very
didn't.
intense.
Unfortunately, like I said, I need to go back there with a male
Oh.
because I did get
You're,
some like
you're just gonna
warnings
sacrifice
before of
that
a.
dude to the spirit.
No, I'm not gonna sacrifice. I'm gonna because they you can go in there, but you cannot taunt it.
Sure,
So
sure.
don't think I'm gonna get a lot of good evidence taunting it. Because as
This
that
spirit
little
ain't gonna touch me. I'm a big tough man. Eh!
yeah, that's what
But
happened, and they're just like, yeah, I got some, but it's mostly them. You know, you see faces here and there, or you see a
Mhm,
shadow figure walk by, or hear footsteps going by.
mhm.
Other than that, with me being a woman, they didn't want to do anything to harm me or scare me off of them. So,
Yeah. There's a couple places I've been to, especially like psych institutes and stuff like that, to where you really can't leave the female investigators alone because they
yeah,
will have all sorts of stuff happen to them from the inmates. Especially, the inmates where they're not 100% in charge of their faculties, and they never crossed over, so they still have a lot of their ailments from when they were alive.
right.
They don't have that cleansing healingness from going wherever they go. Depending on what your belief is, where they go. So they still have some of those ailments. You'll see spirits with like dementia. That's a wild thing. Trying to talk to a spirit with dementia. That's the most craziest, like topsy turvy conversation because you're following this train. All of a sudden, they're just like, whoop, there they go, and you're like, wait, what happened? And they're gone. They're somewhere else now, and it's like, oh, okay. But some of the patients that really struggled and then passed and still maintain those struggles, like they're a little animalistic with female investigators, and
That's
they'll
why
they'll they'll grab you.
that's why I hate the theory. And some people say this. They don't believe once you pass, you have something like dementia because you're just more complete. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that. If you
I
had that
think
kind of ailment,
I think when you cross, you're returning to the source, whatever that means for you. You know, the universe or heaven or Valhalla, whatever. You're returning to the source of all this spiritualness that we have, and then that's where you leave like the uckiness behind. You know, um, but while you're still here, if you're an earthbound spirit, you either refused or weren't able to cross over. I've encountered spirits where they had condition that historically they had when they were alive, and it's kind of wild to think about that.
Yeah.
Irene, what is the Buddhist version of heaven and hell?
Well, it's kind of different. Well, it's like what everyone else is like. It's just going to heaven is different.
Okay.
Going to heaven is different. Going to heaven is like you're walking on across the river and these rocks, and it's a long path to go to heaven. That's what it is like.
Okay.
That's why when the person died, you always give them a zip of water so they don't get thirsty while they're walking to heaven.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like a path that they all go to
Yeah.
when they go to heaven. Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of similarity with the ancient Greek culture.
Mm, mm,
Coins over the eyes to pay the toll, and then you weigh your deeds in life, kind of
mm.
trials and tribulations through the journey of crossing over.
And after 100 days, you become a god.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
I
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
also I don't know how you say his name, Enma, Irene.
Hmm?
He
Say it
is
again.
he is over here the Japanese version of he is the I guess caretaker of hell. Enma.
Emma.
Yeah, he's
That's what you
the
say.
base.
Yeah.
He lives in hell, but he decides your fate, and he is also
Mhm.
the
Okay.
person. He is also the person who is in charge of everyone's punishment.
Mhm.
But the
Yeah.
Hmm.
weird thing is, even though he's in hell and he decides your fate, everyone, he's big and scary looking. He is actually personality wise the exact opposite, where he doesn't want people there if he does not have to
No.
send those people to there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he will
Yeah.
actually, if he sees that you're supposed to be going to hell, he
Mhm.
will give you, he will basically give you a, not a trial,
Mhm.
a test. He will
Yeah.
test
Yeah.
you to see if you can pass, and he hopes that you pass so he can advance you to heaven. So you're
Mhm.
not
Right.
down there getting punished by him
Yeah.
and his guardians down there.
Yeah. You become somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to deal with you. You go over that way.
And
I have enough people to worry about as it is.
if you're nasty, you could reincarnate as a cow, turn into steer, and be slaughtered and be eaten by others.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on how nasty you are. Or you
Wow.
could be uh you see, you could be walking in the realm that you never go to heaven.
Okay.
Like yeah, like what we call dark spirits
Yeah.
or shadow figure, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
You could be either or, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
As we see a lot of shadow figures
Unless
get
you
figure out.
forgive them.
Yeah.
If they are forgiven, they can't cross over. But until you forgive them, they'll never cross over.
Oh wow.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then does that reflect in your spirit interactions there? So like, do you have these spirits who are constantly like asking for forgiveness, knowing
Yes.
that that's the only way they can get across?
Yeah.
Wow. One day I'm going to go to
There's
Japan. One day.
there's some there's some that you could never forgive, right? And
Sure.
they'll never
Sure.
cross over. Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll spend eternity walking as a um like Walking Dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So that's what happens here.
Hmm.
It's uh, it's a really strict way of thinking about it, right? And it's kind of like unforgiving.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's either or. They pick your choice, multiple choice, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, but you know, if you think about it, it's not that bad when you think about it, right? Well, that person doesn't deserve to go to heaven, so that person can be living like their realm of hell, right?
Mhm.
Sure. Sure. There are a lot of light workers that also are of the opinion that by maintaining that grudge, it also weighs you down too.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are looking for forgiveness for themselves to release them from the burden they're carrying
Yeah.
by forcing the burden on someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that has an effect as well.
Here
That
in
too.
Japan, they have a it starts with an I. I forgot the name of this ghost,
Okay.
but they have a ghost where they say they call it the ghost of a living person. They
Oh.
say it's actually a ghost of a living person. And it's not to them, it's not a mimic, it's not anything else. They say it's a ghost of a living person. How that came about is it's basically think of like as a poltergeist in a house where your energy, especially if there's a lot of fighting in that house, or they say even with a lot of teenagers being emotional,
Hmm.
might
Mm-hmm.
create that energy for a poltergeist. They say the same thing can happen if you hold a grudge against someone.
Hmm.
Like if
Mm-hmm.
my grudge was so high against you,
Yeah.
as an example, it can create its own energy and spirit and go after that person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. so we the only difference here would be the going after the person part.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But a lot of people that I work with, they call that an emotional imprint. What's going on, James?
Mhm.
And it basically creates a residual spirit.
yeah,
Where the one example I have is we investigated a bar, and this guy just had the worst luck. Lost his job. His wife left him. His kids wanted nothing to do with him. So what did he do? He sat in the bar, the same stool, the same time every night, just pounding drinks, just getting drunk, obliterated. And after a couple of years of doing this, eventually he got a new job, got a new wife, made up with his kids, and he stopped drinking and he moved away. Well, over the years of depositing all these negative emotions into the bar stool, the bar, who knows, something in that area, um, he deposited a residual spirit into that spot to where now, even though he's still alive, and the bar owner could contact him and be like, "Hey, how are you?" and he'd answer the phone. You could still see him sitting at the bar drinking. He doesn't interact with you. He just sits there and just drinks and watches TV, whether the TV's on or not. He'll just look up at the TV. And he created his own residual spirit through an emotional imprint.
Mhm. Yeah,
So, and
that's
that was wild. But yeah, it's a living spirit technically.
mhm.
which is crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, because we're all taught like, oh, you have to die, and then either you're a ghost or you're a spirit. That's the only way it happens. Well, not necessarily.
yeah.
There's
That's
there's
what
a
I
lot of
always tell
ways.
people here. There is a belief that there could be ghosts of living people.
Sure, sure.
Mhm.
Well, and then we have negative energy manifestations, which I'm sure you guys have a lot of different things that qualify as that. What's going on, Nate? There was one case we did where this woman, when she was younger, had some really traumatic things happen to her. Really traumatic things, and she just bottled it up and internalized it for like 20 years. And then all of a sudden, something in her house kept attacking her husband.
Mhm.
They had just moved in together. They had just gotten married, and about a month later, all of a sudden things are moving in the house. He's feeling oppressed. He's seeing shadows, and they're all targeting him. Once we talked to her, and then cleansed the space, cleansed her, cleansed him, it still kept happening. So a medium friend of mine said, I want you to go and seek therapy. Go for a couple weeks. Talk about things that you've been suppressing and you don't want to tell anybody about,
Mhm.
and then report back to us. And then about a
Yeah.
month and a half later, whatever that was gone.
Yeah.
And the medium said that it was something that she was repressing so much and depositing
Mhm.
all these negative feelings and emotions into herself that it took on a life of its own, and
What
then
you
it was
are, what you
basically feeding
create.
off of her.
What you are, what you create, and
Yeah,
that's why you should fight in your home. You should have children fighting your home. It creates energy, and it bottles up and it explodes and it
yeah,
unleashes in your home.
yeah, and that's why you need to be
So
cleansing your space every once in a while, just to get rid of anything that is there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it happens everywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
It's definitely not like a single culture. That's worldwide. Annie.
Yep.
So yeah, I like comparing things that I experience here to things that you guys have, and to realize it's really
Yeah.
not all that different.
We don't really have a
And
way
if you
here
live in a haunted
to.
house, if you live in a haunted house, it's worse because
Oh
it's
sure,
There's
it
not really a way
times
here
three, right?
to. There's not really a way here to cleanse a house like we would. You
no,
can
No.
no sage would do absolutely nothing here because it's not a
oh
belief here. And I basically compare it to if you saw me at your house and I was like burning dandelions and
right.
using smoke. To them, that's the same thing because it's not a belief. There's not really a way to cleanse the house. Unfortunately, if it's haunted, it's haunted.
What
There's
about
nothing you can really
incense?
there's nothing you
Yeah.
can really do. The one
Yeah.
thing that's kind of refreshing in Japan to me is that we don't have anything over here. We don't have people over here or anything equivalent to a demonologist.
Oh,
No.
you're better off.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people who throw that word around, and I'm
I,
not
I
trying
have
to.
I have friends that have been doing it for decades, and I get it. You're educated, you're learned, sure.
Yes,
But then I know people that read a book and now they're a
yes,
demonologist, and I'm like, are you?
or
How
no,
many demons have you tussled with? How many
there is
Yeah.
jerks have you tussled with that you said were demons?
Yeah.
there is like online courses you can take that give you a certificate at the end saying the
Yep,
same thing, but
yep,
it doesn't even scratch the surface to anything you actually need to know. It's basically paranormal 101. It's stuff
right,
I already knew because I took a course just because I kept making fun of it. Yeah, I was like, you know what? Just so I can actually say I did it, so I know what I'm talking about, I'm going to take one of those courses, and I did. And it's stuff I already knew basically as a paranormal investigator, and I'm like, this is not even close to
yeah.
the stuff you need to know for
Yeah.
demons.
Yeah.
So I'm
There are
like,
people that have a lot of experience that go to these conferences and do these one-on-one talks,
Mhm.
and they're free as long as you're going to the conference, of course. But they're free, and
Mhm.
you'll learn so much more from these people having investigated for 25 years
Yeah.
than to pay the whatever fee to get an online certificate.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
even those conferences are not enough information that you need to know to be a
Yeah,
demonologist.
well, yeah, because half the time you're lucky to get 50 minutes to talk at a conference,
Yeah,
True.
and for a one-on-one, 50 minutes is not enough time.
No.
You're scratching the surface of everything, not really getting deep into anything.
Mhm.
that's why they say it takes years of studying and practice.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first started, this was like 2010, 2009. Um, we didn't have all the fancy toys that you have now. What we
Mhm.
started with was an EVP recorder.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was it. That's all we had. And we got great stuff. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, we got great stuff. And then we got a couple EMF meters. Got into IR photography, UV photography.
Mhm.
Eventually, my partner Dan got into dowsing rods and absolutely loved his dowsing rods.
Mhm.
And then now, spirit boxes and all that stuff. But back then it was just an Olympus recorder. That's all we had. And
And a good 35 millimeter camera with a good telephoto lens. That's all you need, actually.
so when I started in 2009 ish, it was mini DVs,
Mhm. Yeah.
the little mini digital video cassettes.
Yeah.
And I probably have a box of 100 of those somewhere around here.
Mhm.
All original videos that we just recorded on.
Mhm.
And we kept filming and recording, but it was
Mhm.
really hard to get a DV downloader to convert it to digital.
Yeah.
So we just kept storing tapes for forever, and
Mhm.
then eventually got a downloader, but didn't get through them all, and
Mhm.
it was a mess. but but yeah, like that was all we had back then,
Mhm.
and you still got amazing things. But today you've got SLS cameras and REM
Yeah.
pods and all these crazy devices.
You got
I
all
feel
these
like I
toys,
had
right?
better I feel like I had better luck back in the day without all that fancy equipment, just like that
Yeah,
recorder and stuff, than I did
sometimes I do.
than I did with the technological more technology, I guess, or the
Mhm.
Yeah,
stuff that's coming out. I just back then definitely I got a lot of good stuff. It's one of those things where they say what's your biggest regret in paranormal, and it could be missing video stuff. Like, yeah, that's what happened to me, especially when we didn't really have like the laptops, or well, we did have laptops, but we didn't really have things saved like we used to, or it was saved, but it might have been like in a different computer. So I
right.
went through and got lost. So I'm like, man, trust me,
Yep.
I had so much stuff that got lost. That was such great memories.
Yeah. 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 I still have some photos and videos that go back to 2010. Like I have a massive hard drive that only ever gets plugged in when it's time to use it. But I'm fortunate to have some of that stuff still. And there's a lot of pictures of me that don't see the light of day. I was a much different person back then, but I didn't have a beard at all. I was very clean shaven. But those photos are buried back with the ghosts now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I remember distinctly, getting EVP responses very often. Direct answers, but they were always very simple. It'd be like yeses and nos and single or two words.
Yeah.
Um, Using spirit boxes now, you know, with a spirit box, I can get a 5-word answer that is a direct answer to the question.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it a true answer? More than likely, but because it's a spirit box, maybe not. It's hard to say. But, when you add in like the Estes method to it, to where, I'm saying something and I have no way to hear the question, that's really cool. I wish we would have developed Estes a long time ago because I really enjoyed
Yeah,
doing
that's what I
it.
was thinking.
Like, that's a really cool method of ghost hunting.
I have seen some crazy videos from the SS method.
Yeah. Well, we did
Well,
one here at a location about a month or so ago, and we were in the basement of a school in the kitchen, and then off the kitchen is like a cold room where they would store stuff because it's the early 1900s. They didn't have refrigeration. So I'm in this concrete room wearing the headphones. I have a microphone on, and then the other investigators are in the kitchen, the next room over. So not only is there like 20 plus feet between us, but we're in complete separate rooms. And my friend Neil, who popped in the chat earlier, he's asking the questions, and he asks, did something ever happen down in this room? And then immediately I say the word beatings. And then for like 5 or 6 responses, I'm talking about kids that were brought down into this room and were punished by the priests and the nuns in the school. And it's like, there's no way for me to hear the questions. I've got the noise canceling headphones. We're so far apart in separate rooms. Neil's talking quietly, but the answers were like right there every time, just bam, bam, bam. Um, Estes is such a wild technique that it's like I can't explain how that worked, but boy was it really cool.
I've seen videos like that too, where the people won't even be in the same building, but
Yeah,
they'll be watching that person on camera who's doing the the blindfold earphones on. They'll ask a question from where they are,
yeah.
and it's weird because they said that person started answering the question.
hmm
Like
A
that.
friend of mine has a podcast where he would do that with a couple people. He'd do Estes, and over the podcast, that not even different buildings, but sometimes in like different states, where one's asking the question on the podcast and the answer's coming through the Estes on the podcast. And it's like
I'm sorry
bilocation's
for
a cool
interrupting.
thing.
I gotta go. Okay. So see ya.
Okay.
Take care.
See
Bye
ya.
bye.
She's out and about doing her thing. But yeah, spirits being able to bilocate is a really cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, the videos I've seen is crazy on that. I'm like, why? Who thought of this?
Right.
How did they
Right.
think of this? And why did we not doing this sooner?
It's so simple. It's not even like a super hard thing to do. You're using an SB7 and some good headphones and a sleeping mask. Like that's it. And sometimes I use an app. I really like my Phasma box. It's a Windows based app, so I have a Windows tablet that it runs on. But because it's on a tablet, I can turn the microphone off, so I know it's not receiving anything from the microphone. The tablet does not have internet connection, so it's not getting a signal through the internet.
Mhm.
It's just the spirits are speaking through something, and the answers are just incredible. And then the fact that they tie to a question that I can't hear is like I have no way to explain this. It's completely mind blowing. Let's do it again.
Some of those apps, though, are a joke, and you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. There's a few that if you listen closely, they'll repeat words,
Yeah,
and you're like, I've heard the word basic 5 times in the last minute. What's going on, Jay? We're gonna turn this app off now. Um, my mistake was using an SPF 7. Yeah, so that's not going to be strong enough. I would highly recommend the SPF 50 as a bare minimum. Otherwise, you're just going to get fried by the spiritual light. What's going on, Joe? Get fried.
I knew someone who they tried one of those spirit box apps,
Hmm.
and they got a basically an advertisement for Geico.
What?
Like that's what came through. All of a sudden, they said through it, they just said save money with Geico. And they're like, yeah, that's clearly not the spirit, unless they were
Geico representative.
yeah, insurance salesman at the time when they
I'm
passed.
I'm
And
still making my commission in the afterlife.
oh,
Yeah, no.
oh god, that'd be terrible working in the I mean, there are people who, and that's, I always said this. I worked at places that were haunted by ex-workers, and I'm just like that. That to me is my hell. You die, and you're forced to haunt your old work location.
Sure. But sometimes it's a choice though. Look at Broadhead Manor, the 60,000 square foot building, right? Well, back in the day, it was a school. So, and it was a lot of variations, all ages school, a middle school, a high school. It ended its life as a middle school, but now you have spirits of teachers, principals, the janitor. They all inhabit that building not because they're stuck, but because they choose to. You know what I'm saying? Like for a principal, like the school is probably his castle. Like that's his domain. For a janitor, like I run this place, I keep this place clean. This is my domain. The teachers, I got no idea. And nuns, yeah, there's a nun there too. So even the spirits want to ask you about your car's
Yeah, I was
warranty.
gonna
I know,
say,
right?
like you're not safe from that. Even in the afterlife, they're still gonna ask you. No,
Let me tell you about your car's extended warranty.
yes, there. I worked in a
And no more
grocery.
Estes.
I worked in a I worked in a grocery store that one of the ex-managers haunt. And one
Mhm.
time the supervisor on duty said it was weird because there was a computer on and she heard typing and she looked over and he was trying to and she watched him trying to log in to his old stuff
Oh no,
on the
no, no, no.
computer. And
You're
she's like,
you're
"It's so
you're
weird."
retired, dude. Enjoy your retirement.
Yeah, because she looked over and saw like him typing in what would have been his username
Yeah,
and then trying to enter a password. And there's no one else in the office. Just as what, and she wasn't sitting in front of the computer.
yeah,
She was happened to be a little distance away. She just happened to hear those strange noises, and she looked over, and then she was like, "Why is how?"
right. Now, was this in Japan?
No, this was back in the States.
Okay, I was gonna say
But
because I know Japan has an extremely polar opposite work culture than we do.
oh yes, there it is. It is one of those things. I don't even know how they get this work culture, but basically, no one wants to arrive late.
Sure,
No one wants to arrive late. They don't want to take days off.
right,
They'd rather do the overtime.
right. And then I've heard
They're just
stories of people literally working themselves to death. So, and then presumably they're going to keep working in death. Janitor's the only one you can't dock 32. Well, the principals also don't like that. Remember when we were there, Mike, and we were investigating the principal's office, and Jenny Davis started talking smack to the principal, saying, "Why don't you come and break me?" Long story. And then the principal made her throw up. So, you know, again, spirits that kind of jerks. But if you challenge them and you're not nice to them, oh boy, that's not a cool thing. That's not just a Japan thing. That's also a farm life. Also, very true. Yes, yeah. Farmers are incredibly hardworking here. I'm sure it's the same in Japan.
And
Um,
it's funny here because here, if you arrive first, you park in the back. Like they start parking the back end and starts going from back
oh,
to front. Because if you're running late, they want to save the front ones for if you're running late. This
yeah,
way you can make it in on time. It's that much of respect where it's like dishonor if you're even late, basically.
I could see that. I could see that. Hmm. In
That I would
Japan,
not
only
say is true living here. There is a lot of farms here.
there's also Hello Kitty farms too.
Yes, Hello Kitty is huge here. Then it's Snoopy. That's the second biggest.
Snoopy, like Charlie
Yeah.
Brown.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it literally goes from Hello Kitty, most popular, and then Snoopy. And then
I would never have guessed.
I say
I
this, but it's
wonder
funny
why.
because I was telling people not too long ago we had a hurricane coming,
Yeah.
and Irene and I both don't know why, but everyone kept buying up all the rice. So there's a
Hmm.
rice shortage in the stores
Yeah.
because we're like, if you're without power, how are you making this rice? But the
Propane
other thing,
cookers on their stove.
yeah, but if you don't have power, because
Oh, an
she
electric
had
stove top
electric.
thing.
To her, I'm like, nah, I kind of get that with me. She has electric, so it wouldn't work for her. Me,
Yeah.
my oven, I call it the easy bake oven
Okay.
because it only can fit a 4-tin muffin pan. That's how big it is, and it runs on a D battery.
What?
So I'm like, I technically could be using my stove.
Yeah, that is an easy bake oven.
I call it an easy bake oven.
Wow. Build a fire. Fire could work. Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Very, very true. But if it's a hurricane, there's probably a lot of wetness around. So you
Yeah,
might
and that's
you might
what's I was
struggle to make
telling
a fire.
people. So I was on Amazon Japan looking for something. It was showing me the top 3 searches at that time:
Yeah.
rice and water, which I understood,
Yeah.
because you also couldn't find bottled water anywhere. It was being bought up. But the third one was Pokemon. Was the third most searched.
Well, you
So
have
that
to
is
have
people's
something to do, right?
yeah. So I'm like, that is their priorities when a hurricane hits. Got my water, got my rice, got my Pokemon.
A Pokemon. What's going on, Ronald? I'm really surprised to hear that Snoopy's number two and not some other kind of dog like Scooby Doo or something.
Yeah, it's Snoopy. I can find a lot of Snoopy merch places.
That's crazy. Huh.
Obviously, Pokemon you can. Well, there's still places where you might not see it labeled as Pokemon. It's to them, it's still Pocket Monsters.
Oh, right, right.
It's just
Yeah.
the original name, or that's what it is. Like Pokemon is Pocket Monsters in Japanese, I think. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'll still see it around as Pocket Monsters. So I tell people like, yeah, I can send you some merch, but it might say Pocket Monsters.
Well, if you're kind of a diehard like that, that's probably preferred.
Yeah,
I remember as a kid, Pokemon cards came out here in the States, and I don't know how, somehow we were able to get a hold of the Japanese cards. And the artwork was just so much better. Like they looked amazing. You just couldn't read the damn things. So we had to like look up the card in English and then put like a little piece of paper next to it so we knew what it said. But we were like, bam, Japanese Pikachu, eat that. So Pika
I
Pika
have to look for
Chan.
some cards now.
Yeah, yeah. They're not as big here anymore. Really, once they started doing all the expansions, they kind of fizzled out. My generation, we were good for the OG deck, and then once they started doing all these crazy things, we were like, and check please, we're done. But yeah, I remember that they were big. They were real big.
They tried bringing it back with Pokemon Go.
Yes, Pokemon Go was actually really big here for one summer. I
I
remember
remember that.
I got on that train. I got on that train.
I remember
Um,
that because they were having issues still because it would show. Because I mean, they changed it now where you don't have to be entering buildings to catch the Pokemon. but they
Yes.
made it so you had to enter buildings. The problem with that is like people in office buildings were complaining, like people just walked into the employees only area. People
Yeah.
said people walked in meeting rooms in the middle of meetings trying to catch whatever Pokemon they said was in there.
Sure.
CEOs were complaining that all of a sudden their doors would be opening. They don't see it's some random person that doesn't even work there,
Right.
and they're trying to catch some Pokemon because it was in there.
When I first started on it, I'm in the suburbs, so it's a lot more open space. Most of my catches were like around a river walk area. So that was my excuse to get exercise, to go walking so I could hatch those damn eggs. And the summer it came out, like the river walk was packed with people. And when something special spawned, you'd see them all running to one area. So you knew, like, oh, I need to go and catch up too, get something amazing. Um, and then the next summer they were all gone. Like that was it. Pokemon Go was finished. And I know there's people that still play it now. Um, but yeah, like that fad fizzled out real quick.
Yeah, it got big here again.
Yeah.
Well, I stopped using it because the app, for some odd reason, it pissed me off because the app wasn't registering my steps. Like I'd walk a far
Oh,
distance. I'm like, surely my egg has hatched. And I look and it said from the time from A to B,
yeah.
0 steps. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
No, I'm done. We're not gonna register. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Sold, completely out of touch with Pokemon. Um, just consider them cartoon versions of baseball cards.
Yeah.
It's the same obsession, but baseball cards are typically worth more. Um, but they're also more strict on the grading. Like it's 1 degree off from prime color. You lose $100. Crazy, crazy.
I That'd be hard to be an expert. I don't even know how people become an expert in that though. Just
You just
because.
got to be obsessed about it. Kind of like with all things. I'm nowhere near an expert, but I gave up my Pokemon card collection, and now I collect projectors and film cameras. Old stuff. So like I like looking at those, and I'm like, wow, these are really neat. That's a 50-year-old projector. So, am I an expert on it? No. Can I tell you how they work? No. I just like how they look. Um, Remember when Fred and Wilma Flintstone met?
You know what's crazy? I was watching an episode of Flintstones, and
Yeah.
you know how the cars work where he's like basically sitting and running.
Yeah,
But it's
pedaling their feet.
funny. Yeah, so it's funny because he went to a gas station. He still had to fill up his car with gas.
Right. Okay, yeah,
Like,
that's weird.
oh my, wait, what?
Yeah. What was the gas if all the dinosaurs were still alive?
Yeah, well, it just didn't make sense.
Right. Right.
But it's funny because the Flintstones and the Jetsons are in the same universe.
Yes, yes they are. Yes, they are. Which I wish they would have explored that more. They just never did.
Yeah, the whole theory was like something happened on Earth what made a lot of people live up like in the skies where the Jetsons does.
Yep.
And then obviously everyone down below went to caveman period where you see the Flintstones.
Yeah, but there's certain things they remember or were passed down, like cell phones and TVs. They just made the Stone Age version of that.
Yeah, which is still hilarious, but it is.
Yeah, I'm,
I
I'm
know
still
everyone's like,
trying to
well,
figure out where the dinosaurs came from. Like some experiment that went wrong or something.
it could have been an experiment going wrong because I
Yeah,
know I've always heard stories of scientists a long time ago
yeah.
trying to bring back dinosaurs.
Well, there was one that I saw this year where they were talking about extracting DNA from mosquitoes, and I'm like, there's 9 movies about this. We've covered this. Don't do it. We know better now.
Oh, they're
But
still trying to do it, and I'm sure they
yeah,
have. They just haven't told us they brought back T-Rex because they know everyone would be panicking.
right, right, yeah. Let's not do the meat eaters. If you want to do the leaf eaters, fine. I can get down with that. I would love to see a gigantic brontosaurus the size of a skyscraper. Sure, let's do it. But if it wants to eat anything, can we just skip that? Can we just not? Do we really need velociraptors? Are they cool? Absolutely. Do I want to be eaten by one? No. No.
People
But
have
if I am going
posted
to go out, I want to go out like Jimmy Buffett.
people
Did
have thought
you
they seen them flying around though, which is crazy.
the pterodactyls?
The pterodactyls, yes.
Yeah. In Jurassic World, there's a cameo of Jimmy Buffett because the restaurant at Jurassic World is Jimmy Buffett's restaurant. And he's fleeing from the dinosaurs that have just kind of broken into the area, and he's running with two margaritas, like sipping his margaritas, like he's running with two of them. Like that's a very Jimmy Buffett thing to do. That's hilarious.
It wasn't even scripted, but he's like, "Yeah, I'm not wasting days."
Like nope, I'm taking these with me. So, um, but yeah, but that would be the way that I'd go out. Like, let me have these two margaritas, let me drink them, and then you can kill me.
Which is
I
smart
remember my first
because
T-Rex ride to school.
that's how you know your little part's not getting edited out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you have to make something worth keeping. Like, yeah, you're gonna do it right, just like Jimmy Buffett did. And it's such a quick thing. Like, it's just a quick shot of a man running with margaritas. You don't even realize it's him until you're told it's him. And then all of a sudden, now it's a really cool story. Like Jimmy Buffett at Margaritaville on Jurassic World, running with two margaritas.
Have you seen the Avengers movies?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, so the theory is because everyone is just like at the very and anyone out there watching, and this you should have seen this by now, obviously with
You better have
Endgame.
seen this by
Everyone
now.
says you have to put out spoiler, even though it's really old. But the end
Well, I
of
think we're well
Endgame,
past spoilers at this point.
yes, and I'm just like, why? You know how old that movie is? Especially when you say Sixth Sense, and people are just like, you didn't say spoiler. I'm like, you know how old Sixth Sense is?
If you need a spoiler alert for Sixth Sense, it's time for you to get off the internet.
Yeah,
You need to
but
go
you know
watch
how
the
the end
movies.
at the end of Endgame, where you find out that Captain America did go back in time and he stayed back in time.
Mm-hmm.
People are just like, well, how come he didn't warn people? Like, if he knew what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
why did he not do anything? And it's funny because they actually answered this.
Yeah,
You know how Stan Lee had all his cameos?
yeah.
If he did not pass away, you would have seen when it went to
Steve.
old man Captain America, it
Yeah,
was going to be him. You
I
were
I could
going to
totally see
find
that.
out that all his cameos was actually Captain America watching everything go down,
Yeah,
keep an eye on everything.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, he wasn't going to change anything because he knew what happened had to happen. That's why he wasn't going to go back and change anything.
Sure.
Because if you change to something, it's still something else is going to happen. So
Right. Well, that and if you want a more canonical answer, anything that he would have changed would have got snipped by the TVA anyway. So he anything he would have changed would have been set back, and it would have outed him as being a time traveler.
yeah,
So in order for him to get back to that time, everything had to go off the exact way that it did. Otherwise, he might not have ever made that. And then you
yeah,
get
and
that
that's why
whole
people are
time skip
saying,
paradox.
yeah, that's why I was like, he wasn't going to change anything, but he did keep an eye on everyone and everything, and that's why he happened to be at the right place at the right time, and that was
Right,
Stan Lee. That was him. That's supposed to be Stan Lee as old Captain America. It's just kind of
right. Now there
you know.
was one change that they never talked about, and that was the fact that Thanos destroyed his shield in the battle, like crushed it, like broke a quarter of it off. But somehow Old Man Steve has a new shield. Where'd that come from?
That's a good point. Yeah, they don't. It's one of those things where you're like, well, he went back in time. Yeah, but if he had that same original shield, it would have been broken unless he went back and stole a shield.
Right, right. So they never really discussed that one. That one's a weird one of where the second shield come from. Um, so who knows? Who knows?
I think you have Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom.
Doctor Doom. Yep.
Everyone's like, well,
Which
how's that?
they've got the whole multiverse thing going on. So I wonder if they're gonna play that off as like a variant type thing or something.
That's what some people's theory is. Obviously, it's not gonna be out for a while, but everyone's just like, there is part of the comic book where he did become something happened in
Mhm.
another universe that he became Doctor Doom. So you
Yeah,
might
there's
be
there's
it might
that, and then there's Superior Iron Man,
there
who was like an
he
evil
might not
Iron
be
Man.
Iron Man, he just might be he turned into Doctor Doom in another universe with different
Yeah,
technology.
yeah, yeah.
What has been your favorite piece of equipment to use in investigation?
If I had to say, it's the Estes. I dig the whole Estes process. It sucks that I can't do it by myself. I have to have somebody with me that knows how to structure questions and chain them together so that you get responses that are all tied together in the same conversation. Um, but give me my tablet with my Phasma box or an SB7 and my little egg that has my headphones and my eye mask in it, and I'm set. I'm good to go.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need that advanced equipment. I know someone was teasing and they said that they were going to use baby monitors on investigation. I'm like, no, for real, that I've had experience with baby monitors where they did pick up paranormal.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a way to do that for sure.
It's not just a
Um,
way to do that. When my daughter was born, we're staying with her grandparents at that time,
mm,
and the baby monitor, we didn't have the video one, we had
the
the
audio.
sound one.
Yeah.
Where she would cry at night, and then I'd hear a lady in there comforting her.
Sure.
I thought it was grandma, because sometimes she'd go in there if she heard her cry and start rocking her back to sleep.
Right.
And then sometimes I'd hear her whisper, "Man, if you can hear me, can you make a bottle?"
Right.
I went into, I kept hearing a woman, and this happened several times. I kept hearing a woman comfort her. So I assumed, all right, she's good. She's been rocked back to sleep. I was
Mm,
like, let me check to make sure if they need a bottle or anything. I walked in there, and I'm in the next room over. I'd go in there from literally hearing a woman, and I could still hear this woman as I walk up to the bedroom, comforting her. But as soon as I opened the door, there's no one in there with her.
yeah. 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 Well, I mean, it's a common movie trope, right? Where the voices over the baby monitors. You have to imagine that came from somewhere. So it happens. Why does it happen? I don't know. The same reason we get EVPs. It's just instead of a recording, we're listening to it live.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's never happened to me, but I've had people use baby monitors in investigations, and they're loud and they're clear.
Yeah, it was loud and it was clear. I
Yeah,
seriously thought that her grandmother was in the room rocking her because it was
right,
that clear.
right.
Then I walk in and there's absolutely no one, and she's in her crib, and I'm like, I literally just heard this one.
Yeah,
And it kept happening more and more. I'm like, all right, my baby monitor can pick up things.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
Like people joke about baby monitors, like, yeah, don't joke. That could actually work.
Well, and you got people that are like, "Oh, well, we use baby powder and put it on the floor." Okay, if you want to clean it up, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, please clean it up before you leave, because
Right.
I'd be so mad if I owned a haunted location, walked in, there's baby powder all over the place.
Yes, and there've been locations that I've been to where people have done something like that, or they put like sea salt on the thresholds, and it's like, don't do that. Like that could really ruin something. You could ruin the floors. Like don't be pouring stuff onto people's places. And if you are, make sure they're okay with it and then clean it up.
I hate it when people do that though.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the reason why some places have closed. They just got tired of some investigators. I say some
Yeah.
because not obviously not all of us are that way, but there are
Right.
some that just book a location, disrespect the rules, make a mess, and
Yeah.
leave. And
Well,
I'm like,
they'll see a
why?
location, they'll be like, "Oh, this is kind of abandoned, so it must not be a big deal."
It's well, even if you even the places that you book locations for,
Yeah.
and other people book locations, like, so you think because you rented the time, you could just make a mess, and it's their job to clean it up?
Mhm. Mhm.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is why they close doors. They just get sick of people.
Well, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly who's doing it, but I may or may not have noticed that it's the younger investigators over the older ones. But I've also seen some older investigators do some wild things too. So,
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that, but it's one of those things where people forget that owners do remember at
oh
least the
yeah,
group, at least the group who was there. And this
and
is
owners
why I
talk
got
too.
very picky on who I investigated with, just
Hmm.
because if people don't realize this, if you go with the group, even though you're behaving, you're following all the rules, they don't, you're still not welcome back because to the owner, you're a part of that group who had issues.
You're a
You can
part of
say,
that
but I
group.
didn't do it.
Yep. 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 That's yeah. I do a lot of events and whatnot. And I make it very well known. I'm a paranormal nomad, which is what my friend Nikki calls me. I just do my own thing, and I'll jump along with somebody else, but that's about it. Like I don't have anything super set like team wise. But in that regard, like I get invitations to investigations all the time, and if I really don't know you, I'm busy because I don't know your style. I don't know who you work
Yeah,
with. I don't know your reputation really. Whereas, some of my friends I've known for years, they're like, hey, I got a spot. You want it? Yeah, I'm there. Absolutely. So, I get it. And not only that, but you piss off one location. Well, location owners talk to each other.
that's what I told people. I'm like, you don't realize that they do talk. They do know each other. They do
Oh
talk,
yeah.
and they do
Especially if they're
say,
within a few hours of each other. Because like a lot of the buildings by me are in the abandoned state. They're rough, they're workable, but they're really rough. So what'll happen is, one will be like, oh my god, I got a leak in the roof, how do I fix this? Oh, why don't you go ahead and talk to this person because they had a leak in their roof and they can tell you how they fix theirs. And all of a sudden now you've got all these locations talking to each other, and then some jerk comes through and says, yeah, he was taunting my spirits and I had to kick him out. Oh, what's his name? All right, he's on my blacklist now too.
yeah,
You're done. You
I've
just
seen
you
that
just
happen.
burned numerous locations.
I've seen groups banned from multiple locations based off of one incident in one location, and it was one of the rules was we don't allow seances here.
Sure.
And the owner walked in on a seance, and he's like, "Y'all leave."
Yep.
I literally said this is one of my rules, and you
Yep.
thought because I wasn't looking that you're gonna no.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, they were trying to book other locations, and all the other locations around them
Yep.
were saying no. It's like,
Nope.
no, we heard you're disrespecting rules. We don't want that.
Nope. Nope. We don't want that at our place. A lot of places I know they don't want Ouija boards. Even though the Ouija board itself is just a tool, it's not inherently evil. Just like a knife isn't inherently evil; it's a tool. But if I go to stab somebody with it, well, now it's a weapon.
Yeah,
If you go and use a Ouija board and you do it wrong, and something happens as a result of that, well, it's a tool, but you used it incorrectly, and now it's a problem. So I know a lot of places where they're just like, yeah, no Ouija's, not at all. If you use a Ouija, you're out. And you'd be surprised how many people try to sneak one in, thinking that no
yeah,
one's going to notice. And it's
I've seen
like,
that happen.
There are a million ways to investigate. You don't need a Ouija board. A million ways. Like this one tool, just don't bother. Use something else. You want to use a Ouija board? Go to the cemetery and use it there. No one can
Yeah,
stop you.
I've been in locations where I walked in and they had to get so strict on it that it's one of those rules that they literally printed out, stuck it on the entrance
Yep.
and the inside also, because they're just like, this way you can't claim that you just kind of, because even
Yep.
they'll physically tell you, but this way you can't be like, oh, I forgot, because they can be like, it's
Oh,
written
I
right
didn't
there,
know. Yeah. Yeah.
it's right here.
Yep. 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 Yep.
You put
I,
in, they put in writing, so like also when they see it, like, yeah, you saw in writing,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah. I got to wrap this show up. It's been about an
All
hour and
right.
a
Well, thank
half.
you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I had a great time. Thank you so much for having
We'll
me.
have to have you on for another one.
Sure. No problem. No problem.
All right. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. See you next time. Bye for now.
Take care.